I got to the place where I could put my awareness inside my body, and my focused attention or awareness is so intense I can release adhesions in the connective tissue with my focused attention. Right. So I'd never
Wow.
heard that happening before. I didn't know my skull bones have changed. I've got x-rays to show that my skull bones have changed. And I've grown 3/4 of an inch in my 50s when most people start to shrink.
Hi, I'd like to welcome Anne Hince from America, right?
Yes, I'm
Where are you
actually
based?
British, so I have a mid-Atlantic accent. I've lived in California for about 35 years.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. And let's just dive right in. So I see you are actually a spiritual teacher and you've written some books. You're an author. How did you get into all of that? Let's just start way at the beginning.
Okay, my search was for inner peace. That's all I was looking for when I started this journey. Just because I'd had, a lot of trauma in childhood, just like many of us do, not necessarily more or different from other people, but I got to a place where I was so determined to change. I had to change. It was because I went through what I call a business altercation with two other mothers at my boys' school. So I had young boys, and these women were very self-confident, self-assured, authority type women. And I was the scared mother on the inside, and they'd told me I'd done something wrong. And my mind just spun out of control. Like for 3 days, I could not stop it spinning over everything that had happened. What I'd said, what they'd said, what I'd done, what I could have done differently, just all the permutations for 3 days. And it was so intense. And at the end of that, I realized, okay, this is not normal. Normal people do not react this intently to something that really wasn't a big deal. But I also realized at that point that it felt a little bit like how I would react when my dad would tell me I'd done something wrong. So that was my little opening that maybe my childhood was still affecting me at that point. And that was in my late 30s that I had this
Wow.
discovery. So that was the
So
beginning of my journey.
I'm going to assume, as most people that come on the show are actually empaths, and you've learned from a young age to be, very aware of other people's feelings, to be a good girl, to make sure you don't make any waves, to always feel all their feelings, stuff it down. And then the first time you find out is when you get hit by somebody like these two ladies who are your greatest teacher because
Yes.
they show you it's not about them. It's not about them at all. But you had to come across it. Okay, so but now you're an author. How did that come about? Have you always enjoyed writing, or?
No, it's because I went through this journey and I realized, looking back on it, it was kind of a three-step journey. And I got to the place where I could put my awareness inside my body, and my focused attention or awareness is so intense I can release adhesions in the connective tissue with my focused attention. Right. So I'd never
Wow.
heard that happening before. I didn't know my skull bones have changed. I've got x-rays to show that my skull bones have changed. And I've grown 3/4 of an inch in my 50s when most people start to shrink. And I
Wow.
wanted to write the journey down while I remembered it, while I remembered all the details of it, because I knew I was going to keep going, right? So I didn't want to forget those early steps on the journey. So that's why I started writing it down.
So you do this with your mind? Were you going through something that you needed to do it? Were you suffering with anything?
And no, I was in search of inner peace. That's all it was. It just, as I started to release the emotions stored from my past, what I realized was happening was my subconscious mind was opening up, right? So I was becoming more and more aware of things that had happened, more details. But as that happens, the self awareness deepens. Now, I had no
Yeah.
idea what these concepts were to begin with. I had to experience them. So I started to become aware of my emotions, which I had suppressed. Then I started to become aware of the physical sensations underneath the emotions. So when we're feeling an emotion, something like frustration, we're actually holding tension in our body in particular places. That's why we learn to call that frustration. So I became aware of those physical sensations, which is the deeper level of self awareness. And then eventually I was able to put my awareness inside my body, and I would always just be focusing on how I'm feeling, where's the next tension, the next layer to release. And it just got deeper and deeper. So now I'm releasing tension in the bones, in my skull, in my palates, in my tooth
Oh.
roots. And it was just a progression from working on my childhood memories to eventually working on the tension inside my body.
So do you experience inner peace now?
A lot more than before, but I'm still always aware of the next layer. The next layer now just happens to be tension in a bone.
Correct.
Yeah.
So what does not having inner peace look like?
Well, it's a trigger. It's something that gets triggered normally from the past, right? It's something that's stored inside of us that gets triggered. So early on in the journey, I was easily triggered. I believe I had complex PTSD from two alcoholic parents and my dad's anger and all that kind of thing. So I was very easily triggered. And that's part of the reason I so wanted to change. These days, I'm at peace most of the time, but I notice I actually go out of my way to find triggers. So I will watch the news, I will notice how I feel inside, and I will search out those triggers so
Wow.
that I can heal deeper.
Sounds like you've come a long way because most people wouldn't do that.
Yes, and it was part of the journey, right? To begin with, I would pull back from things that were too overwhelming. But once I'd healed all my childhood stuff that I was aware of, I was ready to heal at a deeper level. And so I started watching it again and noticing.
I actually find it's more like a drug. The more you do it, the more you want to do it because you know how great you feel afterwards.
Absolutely.
It's
Releasing tension that's been stored in the
yeah,
body for decades, it's got to feel good, and it does. So, yeah, I
it
did. I
does.
got to that place where it's like I didn't want to do anything else because it felt so good. And changes were happening. So, because I was more peaceful on the inside, my family became more peaceful, which was
It's
really
true.
nice.
Without
And when
doing
you have
anything.
and when you have more awareness on the inside, you have more awareness of what's happening on the outside. So you start to understand why things are happening around you. And it's just a great journey. That burden that we've been carrying all those years starts to be released. So we become lighter, we become more playful, we can laugh more easily. So all those things were happening along the way, and it just made doing the work easier.
Yeah, I find in the beginning when I started letting go of emotions, I thought I would be happy now that I've let go, but actually my brain was just empty. And I thought, well, that's interesting.
I
And
know
everywhere I went, I was,
some
here I am.
people get confused and think that that's boredom because they've never
Yeah.
experienced what a peaceful mind feels like. And when my mind became peaceful, that's when I could look back and say, okay, those thoughts that used to replay all the time, the self critical, the judgmental thoughts, they had all been programmed in me in childhood. And I just replayed them over and over again. And I didn't realize they weren't mine until they had gone. And then I could look back and say, okay, yeah, those were my dad's phrases.
Interesting. So tell me, you say you've written a couple of books, and just tell us a bit more about the book that you've done recently. Is it A Path to
A pathway to
Light?
insight.
That's
To
it.
insight, yeah, because I can sense inside my body. I believe it's the original meaning of the word insight, as in inward sight or
Yes.
inside sight.
Ah, lovely.
So, so it's called the pathway to insight. So it's the path that I took to get here. It's the steps that I took. And also recently I put out a pathway to insight workbook, which has all the questions that will bring up all your past history to, another phrase for it is shadow work. So it'll bring up all that past history that you can then work to release.
So if they didn't know you and they couldn't get hold of you, how would you recommend that they started on their journey to healing? What would you say would be the first step?
The first step is always starting to notice how you're feeling during the day. Right? So if you're starting to get angry or frustrated or sad, rather than getting it, rather than being angry with someone else, notice that you're being angry or you're becoming angry. Because until you can do that, you can't do anything about it. So that in itself is a step that takes some practice. So to begin with, I could only do it one time a day, maybe. But as you do it more and more, as you step back and say, okay, look at me, I'm starting to get frustrated, then it gets easier and you are able to do it more and more often. So, I mean, that's really my whole path, right? Because that's all I do to this day. I notice how I'm feeling, where I'm feeling tension, and I focus on it and release it.
Yeah, because your emotions aren't actually the problem. They're just showing you that there is a deeper problem.
Yes,
That you're either feeling invalidated or you don't feel loved or you're feeling maybe not safe or respected.
right. And all of those underneath the words, there's
Yeah,
physical sensations. And underneath the physical
correct.
sensations, there's tension inside. So we've just got to
Yeah,
find some way to access it. And it doesn't really matter which way, right? The way I used was EFT, emotional freedom technique, or tapping. But I know you use some other techniques, I believe. So you
yeah.
just got to be able to notice what those feelings or those thoughts are. And you don't even have to get to the deeper one first, just find the current one. So if you're feeling sad,
Well,
you can work with
will
the
lead you.
sadness.
Yeah, that will lead you. Yeah,
Yes,
I also
right.
find that a lot of time people that are angry, under the anger is the sadness. It's almost like those layers, you
Yes.
know?
But you've got to work with the anger first. You've got to accept and
Yeah,
acknowledge the anger first, and then the next one will show up.
yeah. So, you are a teacher. Do you teach? Do you host workshops? How do you teach? Do you podcast?
I do have a YouTube channel where I've got quite a few
Ah,
videos, including an EFT demo video for those who are interested in learning that because it's free and easy to use and very powerful. So I do have those videos on there. I'm putting together an online course from a seminar I did do. So hopefully that will be available soon. And I do a lot of things on Facebook. I'm pretty active on Facebook and I try and explain my understanding because I've come a long way and I know I did not have this understanding 20 years ago and I have a lot more understanding now. So I try and explain some of the things on Facebook.
yeah, I've always known for me that your physical illness is related to your emotional state. And if you can heal the emotions, your physical illness will go away. And also that it's stored in different parts of the body. But I recently learned because I've had a lot of teeth issues. So I'm going to ask you this anyway. I've had a lot of teeth issues, and I've discovered it's because I grind my teeth at night. And that's a problem because you're sleeping. You know, how do you stop yourself from doing it? But there are people in Russia that have taught people how to regrow their own teeth through visualization. And I thought, well, that's a great thing to start, you know. And apparently there was somebody who had their um, womb removed in an operation. She managed to regrow a womb and have a baby. And this is all scientifically documented. But of course, I don't speak Russian and I can't get hold of their books. But if you are able to visualize and you can take that time, how long would you think I would have to sit for? I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm just asking. If I wanted to regrow my teeth because I don't speak Russian, what do you think I would have to do that?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And that's not how personally I would address it because until you can let go
Okay.
of the grinding of the teeth, it's not really going to help. And the grinding of the teeth will be due to tension that's stored inside that's not been addressed yet.
And how do you know if you're sleeping though?
Well, with something like EFT, you don't have to do it while you're
Okay.
sleeping, right? You would tap on your thoughts and your beliefs about it. So you would tap on the phrase, I grind my teeth in my sleep and how that makes you feel, right? How it makes you feel that your teeth are being worn down, right? Is the pain involved? Is it changing your life in some way? Are you having to eat differently? So whatever the thoughts and the changes are that are happening in your life about it, I would tap on those. And any memories that you have from the past about teeth issues. But there's also probably deeper tension in there as well, which is why you're grinding. So if you could come up with those reasons, and they might pop up as you were tapping about the tooth issues themselves, right? So you can do all that in the daylight when you're awake, and it will still affect what's happening at night.
Yeah, I would think so, because it got actually to a point where I said, I'm not going to sleep because I can't trust myself not to do it when I'm not sleeping. And that wasn't very useful.
So that would be a
It is
phrase
a
that
lot
you'd want to
better.
tap on, right? You'd want to,
Yeah,
if you
absolutely.
do EFT, you'd tap using that phrase because there's a fear there, right? So I'm afraid of going to sleep because I'm afraid that I'm going to, destroy my teeth.
Yeah. So as you know, we all have these things that come from childhood. So I'm going to ask a question that I ask most of my guests, which is, do you think that you didn't fit into your family? Do you think that you're different to the rest of them?
Well, yes, I clearly was because I was adopted. So it
Okay.
was,
Or
yeah,
that already would make a change. Okay.
yes, yeah. And I was adopted into a family. They had a boy that they had adopted. So my brother, my adopted brother, who was 2 years old, and then they adopted another little girl. They had her for a few months. I don't know how many months. It was less than 6 months. And the birth mother changed her mind. So they had to hand her back to the birth mother. And I was the replacement in the family for that. So, yes, there was a lot going on right at the beginning there.
That is huge, because now you're not only, I find somebody said once that adoption is like being grateful for a trauma. It's the only trauma that you're not allowed to be upset about. It's like really heavy, because there's that, um, you know, you've got to, you were given up for whatever reason. And normally I would say it's because of, I don't think a mother would give away a child unless she thought the child was going to go to a better place. If she wasn't able to take care of that child, that's the way nature would work, hoping that you'd be in a better place. But now you never know the answer. You never get to understand why. And you think it's something you did wrong. And you never
Yeah.
really fit in because you're the outsider.
Yeah. Well, luckily for me, I did find the answer because I met my birth mother when I was 17 and my adopted mother died
Wonderful.
when I was 19. So there was 2 years of
Wow.
overlap. My birth mother's still alive and I'm actually going to see her next month. And so she told me everything. And yes, she did hope that I was going to be put in a better place. So she was pretty upset when I told her about my childhood. So she herself went through quite a bit of trauma, I think, finding out what my life ended up
Wow.
being like, what my childhood ended up being like when she had wanted it to be better.
So what do you think? I mean, it's just speculation, but your adoptive parents, you say, were drinking. What do you think the reason was that they wanted to adopt two children? Was it just to fill a void or to make their relationship work? If
My
they
mother
if they
had
weren't
had an
really.
ectopic pregnancy, so she'd had a hysterectomy. Once she found out she was pregnant, then she lost all chance
Oh
of ever
dear.
having a baby again. So that's why that's why they went through adoption.
And your brother and you, are you close?
My no, and my brother went through. I think often in childhood we do get programmed with what happens, and sometimes we follow what our parents did and sometimes we do the opposite. So I don't
Yeah.
drink at all. My brother became a fully fledged alcoholic and he died a few years ago from multiple organ failure from so much alcohol over the years.
Have you ever heard of family constellations work?
I have heard of it, yes. I don't know anything about it though.
Because what I found with that is, particularly with alcoholism, is it's the search for the father. And when you find an alcoholic in the family, you'll find that the father was missing. He might not have died. He might have been away from the family, just not present. And if he was present, he was also an alcoholic, which means his father died. And what tends to happen in a family is one person goes totally against alcohol and the other one is totally for. And that person is also searching for the father, but becomes very Christian or spiritual in the search for the father. And I've seen it playing out over and over again. Where I am in South Africa, we a lot of the black people are alcoholics, especially in the townships. And that's because their fathers were working in the mines. They were away for many months. And so it just, it has this constant cycle. These boys never grew up with their dads. They grew up with their mothers and their grandmothers.
Huh, interesting. Yeah. And then to heal that, we need to heal our childhood and get to a place where
Yeah.
it's okay if we do have alcohol or it's okay if we don't have alcohol. We're actually at peace with it. And
Mm,
that's what I think we need to be
yeah.
searching for.
But you probably wouldn't enjoy alcohol anyway, even if you did, even if you did drink it.
Yeah, I don't like the effect it has on my body. So.
Yeah, it gives me pink cheeks. I always tell people I'm allergic to it.
Yeah, that makes it
So
easier.
you're an artist as well. So you've got that beautiful painting at the back. And is the other one also painting?
It is, yes. Yeah, they're both acrylic, lots and lots of different layers. And that itself has
Oh,
been a
they are
journey as
beautiful.
well, because I started out being a pencil, I used pencil, black and white. And as time went by, I let go of that. That's almost like a tension, a restraint holding us in. So I let go of that and I started to love color and just the many, many layers. And now I feel into color and I love
Mm.
the color blue. It's just such a relaxing color. So I wear blue pretty much all the time because I can feel into some other colors. I feel repellent. And so I don't want to be around certain colors. So it's been an interesting process.
So if you feel blue, what happens when you feel blue?
Well, feeling, we have that
The
concept of
color blue.
feeling
Not
blue,
not
right?
the feeling blue, no. Yeah,
Right.
feeling
Yeah.
the color blue.
It just totally relaxes. I can relax into the color blue. Whereas with
That's
white,
amazing.
I feel there's like you know, the word repulsion is a hard word to say, but I feel like an energetic push against the color white. And I find myself not seeing it. So it's really interesting how so many cars have changed. Right.
Wow.
I don't know, here the cars are mostly white, black, gray, silver. And I find myself not really noticing white cars. I mean, I know they're there.
Wow.
It's not dangerous, but there's no point me looking for someone I know in a white car because I just don't see them. I notice
Wow.
the colors, the reds, the yellows, the blues. So that's been interesting too.
So what does red do for you?
It there's a spark, a brightness to it. Um, so I don't particularly like it. My husband has a red car. I would not choose a red car, but I do notice it. Whereas the whites and the greys and the silvers, I don't really. They're kind of off to the
Yeah.
periphery.
Well, I mean, there's a whole mindset around colors, a whole for marketing. What color is your brand? What color is your logo? What color is your background? Everything is revolving around that because we do identify with that.
Yeah, but notice how
So,
many more signs are becoming black and white or silver and grey. And again, I do not notice them. I think some people do, and they
yeah.
must do. That's why people keep doing that. But I just find along the spiritual path, that's just a really interesting side effect of it's almost like, all the chakras are given a color. And it's almost
Yeah.
like without any color, maybe you're not even on that rung yet, right? If you're just dealing in the white and the black and the silver. So it's like add color. I really think it's important for parents to add color to their children's rooms because I believe they can feel into color, but the parents can't. So they don't think it's important. But I believe it's really important for children to experience the different colors.
I agree. I agree. I used to have a friend who had pink bedroom and everything was pink. And even when the light came in, it was pink. And I was so jealous because she had a pink bedroom. And my bedroom had no color. It was dark and it was miserable.
Yeah.
And
And
my
how
mom's
did
like,
it
"But you don't
feel?
even like pink."
How did it feel
Said
in
I
her
know.
bedroom?
Her bedroom felt so soft and welcoming. It was like a warm hug, like a
Yes.
loving hug. That's
Yes.
how it felt. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really did. And I don't even like pink, but I loved her bedroom. One day I'll have a pig bedroom when I grow up.
Yeah. See, so you were a
So,
child and you experienced it, you felt it, but
well, I
perhaps
mean,
your parents and her parents perhaps didn't.
well, I just think, our parents are at different places, and there's a reason why we choose the parents that we choose to come into the world and
Yes.
shake you up. I mean, I always say why it's amazing that babies cry when you're born and people cry when you die. It's it's
That's interesting. I'd never thought of
a
that.
harsh reality. They pull you out by the leg and smack you on the bum and get on your way. Welcome. And then you get taught no from a young age. And then
Yes.
you get taught to fit in throughout your school career. And then when you get into the world, you're supposed to be authentic and stand out. And that's like changing your entire programming. And how do you do that? And the only way people can see that I see to stand out is to be competitive and be better than the others at conforming.
Huh.
It doesn't make
Yeah, it's
sense.
interesting. We are so programmed. We have no idea how much programming is inside of us. And me finding this tension inside in my bones, I believe that's the subconscious programming that I am releasing at this point. Now, because early on it was more conscious, right? I was aware of some of my childhood stuff. I was aware of some of that programming. And it's just gone deeper and deeper and deeper. And to begin with, when I was releasing tension inside in the connective tissue, a memory would pop up. So I might know where something happened. I might know that, be conscious of something that had happened in the past. Now that rarely happens. So I think it's releasing that subconscious programming, which is really tension holding us out of alignment. So as we release that tension, we become more in alignment with our true selves, with who we're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's almost like a hose pipe that's been bent and the water's not able to flow. And as you release it, it just is able to start flowing naturally.
Yes.
So I used to have a dance studio and I called it Body Mind. And the reason was when you're exercising and you're moving your muscle, you're actually releasing stored energy and stored trauma. And that is what I'm going to assume. It would be your fascia. Would it be that in your
Yeah, the
connective
fascia or the
tissue?
connective tissue. Yes.
Yeah. So when you release that, you actually are releasing the memory, and then you are it's not held anymore, and that's what actually causes the pain. I
Yes.
think.
Yes. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
it's tension in there. And it's unbelievable how strong. I think fascia pulls with a tension of 2,000 pounds per square inch. And when I
Sure.
first became aware inside my head that forces pulling my bones out of alignment was almost unbearable. It was so intense. And over the years, it's released and released and released, but we're just not conscious of it. It's stored in our subconscious mind. We do not know how much we're being pulled out of alignment until we're ready to feel it. Because I wasn't ready until I had the techniques down, right? I had to be able to focus and release it because the pain, when I became aware in my head, the pain was just so intense. I could only focus for maybe a second on the pain in my left cheek because,
Oh,
and it's the connective tissue, right? So I was actually born with my right foot up against my right shin. So the first 6 weeks of my life, I had kind of physical therapy to release the foot, but my whole body was torqued. It was twisted out of alignment. So when I became aware of that pain in my left cheek, it went all the way down to my right foot.
wow.
So, and so as I release pain and tension in my left cheek, it will often release in my neck on the right hand side. And then sometimes I feel it all the way down to my foot. So it's absolutely connected, but it was all subconscious for the first 50 years of my life. I had no idea I had so much pain and tension inside my head until I was ready to find out.
I had the realization 2 days ago that my feet are cold because I tense my legs.
Huh.
And then I was like, okay, that's now that you know that, how do you relax it? But I mean, it's just going in, feeling it, and allowing it, and not
Yes.
trying to change it, and just
Right.
connecting with it and staying with it.
Yeah. And I suspect that you're tensing your legs to avoid feeling somewhere else but you probably won't find that out until you work to release the legs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the thing is, even if I, like people get restless leg syndrome, even if I was to release, it doesn't stop. They automatically tense again. So some of it is just the body program because that's what it knows. And the other bit is, where did that start? And do I even have to know? Does it matter? Or is it better just to say, this is what I'd rather have, and then focus on that, focus on what it would look like not having it, instead of trying to find where did it come from, because it could come from genetics, it could come from past lives, it could come from, who knows, trauma.
Yeah. And one of the things I found, because I can sense inside, I can sense light and darkness inside. So the
Okay.
darkness is the tension that is held inside from all our past programming. And underneath it, once you release the tension, it's already light underneath. The light is already
Yeah.
there. We cover it up with the darkness, with the tension. So what I realize is we don't need to go to the positive. So we don't need to try and imagine necessarily what it's like without
Okay.
it. All we need to do is find it, find what the darkness is, focus on it, allow it, because it's just stuck energy. So we want to allow that energy to release, and then the darkness is gone and it's already light underneath. So that's what I came to understand.
And also you'd find it's in layers, right? Sometimes it releases straight away, and other times you're like, I thought I've done this.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. But it might be slightly different. It might be a slightly different emotion, a slightly different part of the story that's come to mind, in a slightly different place if it's tension. Yes, it's usually released a little bit and it will be slightly different. I'm still working on this pain in my left cheek. Before, it was so massive. It was like a massive knot inside there of tension. Now it's these little pinpoints that I can find that still hurts, that I still work on. So it's kind of the same place, but it's released so much over the years. And there's just very small parts of it left. So yes, layer by layer by layer.
And if you were to sit and just quiet and focus in, how long would you sit for? Like in the beginning, I'd understand it would be a short time. Now, how long would you be able to focus for?
It's still fairly short because I kind of honed my focus. So if I focus intently on the tension for, I don't know, maybe it's like 3, 4 seconds, I actually feel it and I hear it because it's in my head. I mean, so I know something's released or my neck will crack. So I'll do it for a few seconds, let it release, then do it another few seconds, let it release. So it's not a long period of time. It's just short, focused time. Yeah.
That's almost like a mental physiotherapy.
Yeah. That mental concept has been hard to work through over the years. It's like I used to say I'm out of my mind when I'm doing it. But now
Yeah,
I
yeah,
say I'm not in my thinking mind, I'm in my sensing mind. So,
yeah,
imagine going and feeling what your right knee feels like right now. To do that, you have to stop thinking and you have to feel. So
yeah.
that's what I'm doing. So it's intense sensing, intense feeling. Yeah.
No, I get it. So I actually have a friend who can see auras, and I can see auras, but not all the colors. And she said it was so interesting. She met a lady who's psychic, and she had these like tentacles coming out of her third eye. And as she was speaking, they were actually like feeling for information, and she was
Wow.
just fascinated. But it just reminds me of that. It's almost like you're going in, sending in feelers, and saying, okay, this is what it feels like, and it's like tasting something. I wonder, you know, and just getting to know it and be curious, and
Yes.
say, keep an open mind, because I mean, the subconscious doesn't like to be forced. It likes to be guided, but not told what to do. Yeah, if anything, it'll tell you what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the whole process was, I was not trying to change anything along the way. Obviously, I wanted things to change, But in order to let them change, I had to allow everything. So I had to allow the emotions, allow the
Yeah.
thoughts, and allow the feelings, and allow the tension. And once something is fully allowed and accepted and acknowledged, that's when the release happens.
Yeah. So on another note, and this is something I ask a lot of the people that I interview, do you find yourself being more isolated lately, or do you feel like that's been my experience, and to me it almost feels like being in a cocoon, like we're getting ready for something bigger. And if that is the case, what is that bigger thing?
To me, that's kind of part of the journey. Is it's always noticing how we feel and releasing that energy, right? That's just this whole path. So I know a lot of people are thinking that way. They're feeling like they're in a cocoon, but why is that, right? So if I'm not wanting to go out, where's the resistance? What am I feeling? Because I believe in order for that concept of we are all one to become true, I mean, I know it on one level it is true, but to experience it as being true, we have to release our resistance to everyone. So if we're not going out, we're not wanting to see a particular person, or we're not wanting to go to a particular place, there's resistance inside of us to wanting to do that. So our job then is to notice that resistance, to feel it, to allow it, to let it go so that we can go to those places, we can see those people without the trigger inside of us. Because that's, to me, that's our long-term goal, is to become imperturbable so that we can be
Yeah.
at peace regardless of who's around us or where we are or what's happening.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Indian yogis can meditate in the middle of the busy streets and just shut everything out. But I find as an empath, it's hard to be around people when you feeling their energies, and you're picking up on all their disturbances. It's like very difficult to block it out and say, this is mine, this is yours.
So that's
I'll
something
come
I've
home
learned
and feel
along the way. That's
so. That's
something I've
it,
learned
it's
along
that
the,
imperturbable.
I was more of an empath in the past, and I think when we're like that, we can be manipulated so easily by other people's energy, but that energy that we're feeling is inside of us. It may be theirs, it may have come from them, but it's living inside of us. So this is what I did. That's my energy. So I
Right.
need to work on that. So I would tap on that. I would use EFT and tap on, okay, I'm feeling really uncomfortable around this person, and allow that energy to release. And that's how we start to stand in our own power, in our own frequency or vibration or whatever you want to call it. And we're no longer manipulated by other people's energy. So I used to cry a lot. I used to be very emotional and pick up on other people's energy. And I'm not like that anymore. That has
That's amazing.
changed. Yeah. So we can all do
Yeah,
that.
I am not there yet. I've come a long way too, but I'm not so sure if it's more about picking up energy as it is just because I'm feeling like I don't want to put on a face and try and make conversation. I'd rather just be on my own because I enjoy my space more, just because I enjoy it more for that reason, no other reason than that.
Yeah. Right. So
Small talk
ideally, you'd get to
bores
the
me.
place where you were not putting on a facade for other people, and you would
Yeah,
still be your true self in front of other people. Right.
correct,
That's the
correct.
ultimate goal. Yeah.
Oh yeah, but even so, I mean, I don't anymore. I speak out. I just feel like, yeah, yeah. In a way, you're right. It's more like because I'm always teaching and sharing. I'm always putting myself out there and listening. And that takes work. It's not passive. It's very active. So I like to just not have to do that when I'm at home. I
Yeah.
can listen to
Well,
myself in the
I
mirror
mean,
all
like
day.
we were talking about with the alcohol, the ideal is to be a place where you're totally fine doing either, right? You could go out and be
Correct.
among other people and still be at peace, or you can stay at home and still be at peace, right? It doesn't
Yeah.
matter if there's some resistance or energy pushing you one way or another, then you're being controlled. But if you're standing in your own power and you're totally comfortable with doing either, then that's the place to be, I think.
More work. Layers.
Yes.
Layers. Right. So where can people get hold of you if they wanted to connect or find out more?
Okay, I have my website, which is my name and hince.com, and the x-rays are on there if anyone wants to see how powerful we are, how much we can move our skull bones. I also have my YouTube channel, which is just my name, at Ann Hince, ANNHINCE. And I'm active on Facebook, so you can always contact me on Facebook.
Lovely, lovely. And any last words before we close? Anything I haven't asked you about yet?
I just encourage people to take this journey because a lot of us are stuck and we don't think there's much to this life, right? There's what's the point? But once you do this work and go on this journey, life is so much deeper. There's so much more to life than you ever realized, and certainly than I ever realized before. And it's a fun journey and it's definitely worth starting.
Thank you. Thank you. That was lovely. All right. Well, thank you so much. And yeah, thanks to the audience.
Thank you.
Let's hope we get lots of people to come and see. I just feel like we need to lift humanity. People need to start seeing that there's other things going on and not just all this negative news. And, we have the power.
Yeah. But if we feel that negative news, that's ours to work on.
Have you heard, what was his name? Dr. Hugh Lin, the Ho'oponopono guy.
Okay,
Do you know
yeah, I
about
know.
Ho'oponopono?
I saw that you knew that. Yeah.
So yeah, Dr. Hugh Lin, I mean, this guy, he just stays away from people because everywhere he goes, he has to heal. He has to heal the road that he's driving on. He has to heal the trees that are being cut down and just clearing. And I'm sure it would just get too much at one point because, again, everything is here. It's not about what's there. Anything that you perceive outside of you is something otherwise you wouldn't recognize it in the first place, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of work. And anyway, it's a collective. We all do it. If you do it and you teach one more person to do it, it has that ripple effect. And then you can't, because you don't have to do it all on your own. And as I think it's like as you raise the vibration, it just starts raising it like this.
Yeah. Right. Because I think once we're at peace inside, we're attracting peace into our future. And if enough people do that, then yes.
Yeah.
Yes, we attract peace. And that's what we
That's
do.
how we change the world. Starting here.
Yes, absolutely.
Starting here. Bring it on. Just bring it on. The more crazy it gets, the more I work inside.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yeah.
thank
And
you,
I
Anne,
think that's
so
the way
much.
it goes. And it will eventually, I think, revert back to, I mean, if you watch the Matrix movies,
Yeah.
are you watching the Matrix movies?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
At the end, we all get to peace again. So yes, I do believe it will get there.
Yeah. I think, and who knows that we didn't just create this anyway, just to have fun.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, thanks
No,
for
I want
reaching
to do it
out for
this way.
me.
Oh,
Thanks for
you're welcome.
reaching
No,
out
thank
to
you.
me and doing this.
All right. Have a lovely day, and I'll
Thank you.
chat
You
soon.
too. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.